Hi and welcome to Encore. I'm Connor.
And I'm Catherine.
And on this week's episode of Post Show Drinks, we have the fabulous Jeremy Taylor. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome. So, Jeremy,
Hello.
for those people who don't know who you are,
Yeah.
what are you currently doing with your life?
So currently, let's talk about work first, hey? Just, why not? I play Raoul in The Phantom of the Opera.
Just casually. Just Andy Lloyd Webber's little piece he wrote.
That little thing that people might know about. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the minute.
Now it's not a casual statement, is it really? You are currently playing a leading role in one of Andrew Lloyd Webber's classic musicals 8 times a week in London's glamorous West End at the building where it opened.
Yeah, I suddenly got all nervous when I said that. Because I've been doing it for a year and a half now. So obviously I'm kind of, when you do a job for a year and a half, you sort of get used to it a little bit,
yeah.
But when you just announced it like that, as if I was like coming out on stage for the first time.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight.
I got the butterflies. It was quite nostalgic, actually. It's been a year and a half since I got the butterflies. But yeah. No, it's not casual. No, not at all. It's great. It was a massive deal for me getting it.
Where were you when you got the call?
Oh, that's a really tricky one. I think no, it's not tricky. I was at home. I was at home because I was kind of bedbound at the time because I was recovering from quite a serious injury.
Oh God.
Yeah. It was a really interesting time, and I got the call as I was kind of. I couldn't walk at the time, so I was kind of levering myself out of the bath. It was kind of weird, the weirdest phone call of a situation in which I've got a job, and the phone went, and I had to kind of dry my hand really quickly and pick it up, and that's when I got the call from my agent saying they'd like you for Raoul.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really, really interesting. They're so you like a lot of actors do this because the phone call that you get for a job you can always remember. And they're so, for me, they've been so different over the years because obviously it's been 10 years now over 10 years since I got my first call, and my life's changed so much, that each one's really different. But it was a really I'd say it was a really lifting phone call. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
This one, yeah.
That was not the story I was expecting.
Really?
Yeah, it was a bit like we usually get a little bit quiet later on.
Yeah.
No, this was smacked so quickly.
Oh well, it was just an interesting time because I don't want to go on about it, but it was an injury I sustained doing the previous job.
Okay.
So
literally, feel free to tell us the whole story because we've not heard it.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. It was such a big deal, and it's important for people to see all the. But I was supposed to be doing On the Town at Regent's Park. A couple of years ago.
Okay.
And I was supposed to be playing one of the 3 main sailors. It was Danny Mack in the lead and me and this guy called Fred Haig doing the other 2 parts. And about a week and a half into rehearsals, I had this massive injury and I had to take myself off the show and everything. And it was also the time I was auditioning for Phantom. So I ended up, doing all these auditions on crutches and it was just a crazy, crazy time. And but it all came right in the end. So
do you mind me asking?
Of course.
How did you sustain the injury? What was the injury?
So I ruptured my Achilles tendon.
Oh.
You know that massive tendon just on the back. It completely snapped in 2. And
while you were in a dance call, or
do you know what? It was a really dancey show on the town. But I didn't actually do it while I was dancing. I just did it when I was doing just a scene with this girl that I was playing opposite, and I sort of ran forward and it broke, and it was really nasty. I was really disappointed because it was such a great production, and I was really worried I was going to have to say no to Phantom in the end because it was a bit iffy whether I was going to make it in time. But I just got better in time for it all, which was just amazing how it all turned out. But
do you have any trouble with it now?
It kind of it's a long term thing.
Yeah.
It'll probably I'll probably kind of have a slightly altered that part of my body for the rest of my life now, but I've learned to cope with it. My physio's been amazing, and injuries can be really. I think if you do this career long enough, I've only been doing it for like I said, just over 10 years. But if you do this career long enough, you're gonna sustain something like that because it's such a physical job. Even though in Phantom we don't do a huge amount of dance compared to other shows. Obviously we've got Masquerade, but it's quite a physical job, of course. And eventually something's going to affect you, and that was the time that it affected me. So
as you say, it is a very physical role, and not just because of the role in Phantom, but it's a very physical job, no matter what role you're cast as.
Yeah.
And we've had other performers in who've been saying about you do have to treat your body as an athlete would.
Absolutely.
Because actually you do have to look after yourself, from down to your voice and making sure you rest it when it's the right time, and even
definitely.
the atmospheres you're singing in, to actually how you're physically moving on stage.
Yeah, it's a funny one because it's like it's people. You tell people your working hours sometimes, which is people ask you and you sort of say, "Oh, I get into work at 6 and I'm sort of done by 10," and they're like, "God, that's such a small." Apart from our matinee days, obviously, but they are small and intense. But actually, it is a 24-hour job because you do have to look after yourself the rest of your time, so that those 4 hours are
the best
doable
and
the best 4 hours of your day. So it's not. I mean, people do go out, obviously, but you sort of. You have to save those kind of drinks out till a Saturday when you've got the day's rest. You can't do it every night. You can't really do it many nights actually. But
and I think it's interesting you say that. And props to you. And two things I want to comment on is you keep referencing that you've not been in the business long. I think 10 years
maybe
now
it is
feels quite like a sustainable amount of time. Because lots of people we interview now have been like, I've been in the business between 10 to 15 years, and they're the ones that have still got everything about them.
Right.
In all aspects. Yeah. Physically, emotionally, mentally. And they're still going after jobs. They may not have consistently worked for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. Oh, no one has consistently worked. No. I mean, there's always times out of work, I guess. But
I think there's definitely... I mean, put yourself in that skill set that I've got a good grasp of the industry. And I think also as well for you to have had a very life-changing moment... that could have gone one or two ways. That props for you to still then go and do another gig.
Yeah, I think it fueled me to just try and do the next thing, because I was so looking forward to On the Town, and it didn't happen. And I think and then the Phantom audition started coming in, and I was just like, I couldn't have had a better impetus to go forward. You just have one job taken away from you. You want the next one even more. I mean, Phantom was, maybe let's get back to Phantom. Like, Phantom was actually, it sounds really cliche. So many people say this, but it's so true. It's the first show I saw down in London when I was like 15 or something. And it was that and, Starlight Express. It was on. I don't know why I laugh when I say that, but it was
on
just,
the bright side.
No, I know, God, over in Victoria, and I saw them both in the same trip, and I still remember where I sat, and Phantom particularly, I remember where I sat in the stalls. So we're talking, how old am I now? 33. So we're talking almost 20 years ago, and I remember where I sat, and I can remember for some reason the dressing room scene. I can remember watching the dressing room scene. And now I do it, and every time I do it, honestly, every single night I do it, I always think of myself in that scene, like watching it, like 20 or 18 years before.
I think almost there's, and maybe I'm wrong and being unfair, but actually I almost think there's an additional pressure for Phantom and Les Mis because they're the two shows that everybody remembers. Yeah. They're the two shows that we all went to go and see as one of our first shows. Or certainly in my case, my first ever soundtrack was Phantom.
There you go.
And I think, but also, it's another thing is of that, it may not be your first show, but if you're then like a musical theatre fan, it's one you have to tick.
Yeah.
Like you can't call yourself a musical theatre fan if you've not seen Insert Show here and like pass go and collect £200. Like it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
What I really enjoyed about that story just then is how sparkly you then looked.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you said the dressing room scene, your eyes completely lit up.
Yeah, I liked it. It's one of those. I've got two favourite scenes in the show. One is the dressing room scene, and weirdly, one is the fireman scene at the end. So they're like, where they're all kind of, it's the one where the gunshot happens and all that, and for some reason those two scenes are my favourite because I just feel like it's like the two extremes of the character.
There's a real pathos in both of them as well, isn't there? And it really kind of changes.
Yeah, well, it's kind of
them.
like the dressing room scene. He reverts. He has a sort of weird reversion to childhood, which is nice because he meets someone from his childhood again. I always assume he hasn't kept in touch with anyone from that time before, so that happens and he gets all excited and he gets out of character in terms of his vicomteness. I don't know if that's the word. And then the fireman scene at the end, I've played it a few different ways over the year and a half because obviously performances do change after a while, and the director's always giving you things to kind of change.
And who you're playing with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. And the casts have changed. So and I used to play it as that kind of like desperate, sort of, not desperate, but like he's losing control a little bit. The Phantom's winning this battle a little bit. They're trying to trap him, but he's still managed, and that kind of losing control thing. Now I'm trying to play it a little bit more in control because. But I don't know, they're my two favourite scenes. So.
I love it. That's my favourite bit on the CD.
Is it?
Yeah.
See, it took me a while to go and see it at Her Majesty's, because I'd seen, obviously we've all heard this album, and it's all what you're always wearing. And then the film came out when I was still quite young.
Oh,
the original like film.
Yeah.
What was in the original film?
I can just remember the film.
He's good.
It's good, yeah.
And then it would have been, the next Encounter with the Phantom would have been the 25th DVD. Is 30th, 25th DVD with Sierra Belgress?
I think it's the 25th.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it wasn't, because we only did the 30th a few years ago.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't there for it, but it must have been the 25th before that.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
And then I saw it.
That was great.
And it's a magical piece to see live. And what I like is it's untouched, untarnished. Yeah. I'm sure there's bits they've improved over the 30 odd years.
Yeah,
they haven't changed that much from what I can see. I mean, I really like the 25th anniversary version, but I do think there's something what's the word, not irreplaceable, there's something there's nothing that to me that really compares to it in Her Majesty's Theatre.
There's
nothing can compare to that. You know, the Royal Albert was amazing, but it's just something about that theatre. And I think I met someone the other day actually at the stage door, American woman and her daughter, who she'd seen it in London 30 years ago, and they were from New York, and they said, we've come. I was chatting to the stage door, and they said, we've come all the way from New York to see the show. And I said, you've got Phantom over there. And she said, well, I saw it in London at this theatre 30 years ago, and I wanted my daughter to see it in this theatre. So they, it's down the road from them on Broadway, but they came all the way over here to see that particular. I know, it's amazing. And it's just like, sometimes like it's moments like that, you're like, man, how great to be a part of that.
Now, also, I think it's worth stumbling down the road that obviously you saw Phantom and you went back to the Her Majesty's Theatre and you're playing round, but you also went back to Victoria.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. And
so what did you do in Victoria?
Oh, I did Wicked. Yeah.
How long were you Fiyero?
2 years.
Wow. That's a long contract.
Yeah, well, the contract was, I think we can talk about contract things. Yeah. I'm not in contract with them anymore, but it's their annual contract. So it was I think it was like 11 months. So they're usually 12-month things, and I renewed, and they renewed me for another year. So I did 2 years. That was my first kind of big leading role, really. I mean, I played a smaller part when I first came out of college, and then I sort of did some understudying and some ensemble stuff, which is probably the most formative years of my career, really. was doing that. But Wicked was my first big leading role.
What was it like going on your first night?
Oh, do you know, I was having dinner with my mum and before the show, and I and my girlfriend at the time, and they were chatting and stuff, and it was we'd already done we do sort of run through on the Monday afternoon. It's like a dress run with the orchestra and all that, and then you have you a couple of hours, and then you do opening night. And I went out for dinner with my family and girlfriend beforehand, and we were talking, and while we were eating, I just slowly got more and more quiet as the meal went on, and I couldn't join in the conversation because I was so consumed by it was just pure unadulterated nerves for the first night, because I was like, this is a big deal, and it's a big theatre. It's wicked as well. It's like it's one of those shows that everyone in the business wants to be in. I think, it was one of those shows, and so I just had to say, look, I've got to go and just be in my own space. Sorry, no offense at all, and they were fine about it. But I just remember going, look, I can't, and I just left my dinner and just went and sat in my dressing room, and I had like an hour or two of just like, okay, get in my own space, because it was a really, really nervy first night. I mean, it went fine. It was absolutely fine. The show went fine, but you can't deny those opening night nerves.
Well, is there a rake in Phantom? But back to the Achilles heel.
Oh,
because surely you must be able to feel it, because you're right, there's a massive rake in Wicked.
Doing the show every night and doing it again tonight, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't. If there is one, I don't think it's quite so
steep
severe.
as Wicked.
Wicked was quite steep, and the front of Wicked was strange because it was all those cogs, and it just sort of, from what I can remember, the middle cog just sort of went straight down into the orchestra pit. And at the end of Dancing Through Life, I always had to do this. The ballet people will tell me off for this. I don't know the term. It's a tour on l'air, which is like a turn in the air. And I'm not much of a dancer, but in rehearsals, the then choreographer Adam Murray was like, go for 2. Can you do 2? And some of the boys were helping me because a lot of the boys in Wicked are really good dancers in the ensemble, and the understudy Fiyero and stuff. They're like, teach me how to do 2, and I got a double tour in rehearsal, so I was doing a 2. Yeah. But then when I got on stage, you add a rake to that with an edge that drops right down into the orchestra pit. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. No. So I only ever did a single, which I was really disappointed about. But I was like, this is not worth dying for. This is not worth dying for a little bit.
I like that's the benchmark. Yeah. I love this role. I just don't want to die.
I just don't want to die for it, And that was the end of the double tour. So yeah. There you go.
As now on tape, you did do 2 in rehearsals. So
I did.
On a flat, sturdy, no holy floor.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, give me a double, but on stage, it's another story. On a rake. Well, that's it. It was from what I can remember, it's a strong rake. So there you go.
Visually, you can see from the audience, it's a strong rake. And I always sit at the 4 times I've seen Wicked, I always have a little bit like when the 2 witches at Glyndwr Elfbert run down for their final battle.
Oh, yes.
Like, what if you don't stop? Like, what if that crin under that, I don't think it's crin, but whatever's under the bubble dress, just gives you that a bit of wind? And like, what?
I'm sure it's happened. I mean, I mean, it's the same in Phantom. We've got a orchestra pit. There's a kind of net there, but I think that's more to catch objects as opposed to people. And I just think
nobody wants to damage anything a musician's net.
I know, this is it. And we've got a big orchestra as well. I think it's the biggest. I think, I don't know, and it's all live, and and you can see them all, and they've all got like thousands of instruments around them. They all seem to play, from when I look down, like multiple things. It's just it's crazy.
In my head, they just pass them around, be like, I'll do the violin for this.
Well, just like
lob it over.
Yeah, just the percussions and stuff. There's just so much. There's big timpanis down there, and there's all these brass. Oh, it's amazing.
But they're so important to the sound.
Yeah. Well, the music's is the thing. It's kind of like that's the beauty of it, I think. Is the music.
It's just so magical. Do you know what? I'm already wondering where my Phantom CD is.
So obviously we've spoken about 2 big highlights in your career.
Yeah.
But where did it all begin? When did musical theatre first enter your life?
Okay. I was smile because it's quite a funny story. It's not funny. I think it's funny, but it started quite relatively late. So I was like 15, I think, and I was at this all boys grammar, quite strict, grammar school, and they didn't do any theatre at all, kind of thing. It was one of those, and just randomly this English teacher joined, who was a bit, into all that artsy. Yeah. That's the word.
That's the word.
I was trying to find a word that wasn't offensive, but still kind of described it.
Didn't sit with many other people in the staff room.
Exactly, artsy, and she was like, right, we're going to do Jesus Christ Superstar. We're just going to do it just casually in an all boy. There were girls in the sixth form, but and they did it, and I was in the school choir at the time, right, which was Handel's Messiah type, all that kind of old choral stuff. And my mate was playing Jesus, right, and he said, and they were looking for someone else to be in the show, and he said, oh, why don't you come along because you can sing, and I was like, all right, and it got me involved, but there was only like sort of one part left, and it was like to be one of the priests to Caiaphas and Annas. There's Caiaphas and Annas and then all the priests. Well, they had Caiaphas and Annas, and because they didn't have many people at the school, they just had one other priest, right? And I was that one other priest. Right? So that was my big debut, right? Okay. And but it was quite good because when they realised I could sing a little bit, they sort of gave some of Caiaphas and Annas' lines to me. Aww. And then I kind of got into it a bit more. So that was where it all started. Then I joined Amdram because I liked it so much. Then I moved schools to a theatre college. Then it all just snowballed. And then I had a gap year because I sort of had a little wobble because I was like, oh, is this going to be a secure career? All that kind of thing. And then I was like, do you know what? I'm going to audition. And I did. And I auditioned for places and ended up going to Guildford, which we were talking about earlier. And then did my 3 years there. And then picked up an agency at the end of the 3 years, who I'm still with now.
Oh, I love that.
We've been together. It's like a relationship. Well, it is a relationship.
It is a relationship.
It's a business relationship,
yeah.
and it's personal. Like love my agency to bits. I'm getting all the words mixed up. I love them to bits, and we've been together for 11, 12, probably more like 12 years actually, because I sort of signed with them in the third year. I was very lucky, and anyway, so yeah, and then it was just, and then the auditions started coming in. And
I think that's really important though, because when you're with the same agency, quite often it's quite rare, isn't it, to stay with one agent it's
very rare,
who can also work with you long term on your career.
I think so,
because it's not just finding the next job, it's finding where the arc is going.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, we sort of I looked, it seemed to me like everyone around me was just switching agents every 2 or 3 years. Now that's fine, but I just kind of used to think, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I used to just think, oh, are you sure that issue's your agent? I think people go through, there's always troubles in this business, always difficult hurdles, and you know, most of that being time out of work where you audition for stuff, you're not getting anything. And I feel like I saw a lot of people just sort of blaming their agents and switching. And I was like, but we're all getting auditions, so it's not really the agent. I just think, do the work on yourself. That's what I was just thinking. So that's why I've stayed with my agent, because they've always got me the auditions that I've wanted. And that's kind of first thing. And second is that we get on so well. Like, you know.
You have to have that. I think it's really important. And for any young people listening, when you go to sign with your agent, it has to be somebody that you have the utmost respect for their decisions and what they're putting you forward for.
Definitely.
But also so that you feel comfortable enough to say, I don't want to do that, or I really want to do this.
Definitely.
And that they will have the respect and they will understand.
Yeah,
and when you find that right combination, why would you change?
I know. I've never had a reason really to go to do anything else. They've always been great, and it's always worked out fine. I mean, they've sort of had to, you know, I guess. They tell me more now, I think, than they used to when I was a younger actor, because I had this weird thing on Sound and Music that I did, which was my first job.
Oh, you played Rolf, didn't you?
Yeah, so I understudied it when it was in London at the Palladium. It was the last year of the How Do You Solve a Problem show, you know, that thing. And then it went out on tour, and I was waiting. I auditioned for the tour for the part, and it was taking ages for this offer to come through. And I sort of gave my agent a call and said, "Oh, have you heard anything yet?" And they said, "Oh no, you haven't really heard anything yet." And then about a week later, I got the offer. But it was they'd kind of heard some kind of there was some problems with the Rodgers and Hammerstein Society at the time. Like, I think someone had died or something, and all the decisions have to go through the Rodgers and Hammerstein Society. They tend to okay them all and all that, but. So it had probably been a yes for quite a while, but they just had to confirm it. But obviously, my agent, with me being a younger actor, they weren't too. They sort of older actors who are a bit more experienced. They said that, you know, can sometimes take those things, because some of the time they don't always go your way. Yeah. Whereas at the time they were just like, "We'll hold off until you got a definite yes," kind of thing. And they've always been so good in terms of, like, you know, allowing me to kind of like.
Also, I don't know if this is the right advice, but guiding your mental health. Do you know what I mean? Because imagine
that's the most important thing, though, don't you? Because actually, if you were just out of drama school and you were told that, yes, it looks like the part is going to go to you, but we need to wait, and then a week later you get told, and let's face it, we all know that this can and often does happen, and then you get told, oh no, actually they've gone in a different direction, that could be absolutely soul destroying.
I think it's a difficult one, because you sort of, you know, it's not about not telling the truth. It's just about that, you know, they were just aware that I was quite a fresh young,
and shielding somebody from unnecessary pain. I think that's
so, because
that's quite morally quite respectable.
Exactly, and a lot of business decisions, you know, you do wait until there's that definite yes. And I think, whereas now that I'm, you know, we've been together for a lot longer and all that, it's kind of like that sort of thing's not a problem. They're not so worried about hurting me, because trust me, there are a lot of decisions, you know, that don't go your way, and that eventually, you know, that will happen. So,
but it's a two-way street, isn't it? Because actually, the longer your agents have been representing you, the more understanding they'll have of you. So actually, they'll know how you'll respond to something, so that they know that you'll be able to cope.
Yeah,
and you're more aware of the industry now.
Yeah.
So actually, you're potentially you're sitting at home and your agent sitting in their office having the same brain thought about where that decision could be going. Yeah. That you could jump in the call being like, are you thinking the same as me? And you're
exactly.
Play.
It's just it's you eventually you see every outcome, and that's just how it is if you've done it long enough. So
you made your West End debut at the London Palladium.
Oh no, it's mad, isn't it? I just like
Let's move
I
my
got the
phrases
butterflies
again.
again. It was the 10-year butterflies. Yeah, and do you know what? And the guy who was playing Rolf at the time, Nadim Naman, he was playing the part, and I understood him. I've just taken over Raoul from him.
No way.
Have you?
So he was doing Raoul a few years ago. So we bumped in. I mean, we've kept in touch, every now and again since then. But that was one of those nice little things. You do meet the same people in this industry. Like, you always audition with the same people. You walk into a room and it's like 10 other people that look and sound and act like you. It's a really bizarre thing. And I bump into the same people over and over again. And Nadim was one of those people that we bumped into. So, but yeah, that was it. And I think I had my first show like a week into the run. And I was like, I was 22 at the time and 21. You just don't quite realise how big a deal it is at the time. But maybe you just
Sometimes
can't.
that's a good thing, though, don't you think? Because you
can't take it all in.
Yeah, you might just feel overfaced, especially something like Sound of Music.
Yeah.
That had all the Connie Fisher hype around.
Well, I know. Well, that was it. And that was all happening while we were at college. And it was such a big thing because it was the first TV audition thing that happened. For me, it wasn't. It was actually quite a nice. It was a weird. This is going to sound really strange, but it's so true. Like, it was a relief performing at the Palladium because. So I'd just come out of college. I mean, I'm talking a few months before, okay? And the third year at college is a really testing time, as in you've done all your training in the first and the second year. You're still doing your classes, but it's all about getting you out there with your performances to the agents, doing your shows, putting it all into practice. And but also it's a degree course because they used to be a diplomas, they've made them degrees now. So you're being marked and judged quite literally, with A's, B's, all that kind of thing, marks out of 100 for your performances by visiting acting coaches, staff, faculty members. So you're being tested on each show, okay? And you're also trying to win agents, as well. You're trying to get agencies to be interested in you. So it's a real testing year. Get to the Palladium, and suddenly you've got a paying audience who wants to be entertained, is not judging, is, just going to be overwhelmed and happy with what they see, almost likely. And you get this, and I remember stepping out, and it was like a totally different. It was just a quiet audience, like it was back at college, but I had this sense of it being a really warm, welcoming, friendly reception before they'd even clapped, and that was a different atmosphere to college. So it was actually a nicer experience, but it kind of was actually a nicer experience than any of the third year shows that we did, even though that was all good fun. It was all being judged.
Different this type wasn't. Of pressure as well.
Yeah, well, there kind of wasn't a pressure in a sense because you already got the job. I mean, obviously you have to do the job well, but it was just a different. I could kind of get on and just be Rolf at the time, which is a great part for a graduate as well because it's not too much, it's not too little.
No, but you have to go on quite a massive journey, don't you? Because he has to make that really important decision at the end,
and you've only got a few scenes to portray that character.
And also they're split-second decisions that he makes at the end as well. So actually, what we've seen so far, we have to understand, we have to buy into, we have to recognise that actually, he will make that decision,
exactly,
and why he's come to that conclusion. Yeah.
It was. I mean, I look back now, it was actually quite a nice role, really really nice, especially for a graduate. I think and Liesl was the same for the girls. It was a much bigger part actually, Liesl, but it was just
she spends all her time shepherding those children everywhere, doesn't she?
She's like the on-stage chaperone.
Yeah,
I know,
but I think also you're right, and it's nice for you to take us through the difference in audience styles and the differences in pressures. And I think you're right. I think the thing about the Palladium audience, if we run with that phrase, is that they're there for the story, and they want you to come on and they want you to say those things and do similar things to their film because there's that element of nostalgia.
Yeah.
So especially when you were obviously Fiyero and Raoul, there are elements of when you're sitting in the auditorium being like, I can't wait for that bit.
Yeah.
I can't wait for like Fiyero to come out on the carriage with the wooden horse, being a bit of a goon, and then I want him to fight after Elfborough. I want him to fight after Glinda. So I think you're right, and it's not something I've ever thought about actually. That actually in that third year, you are like, I'm not eyeballed. You're under like a
you are. You've got to get your degree.
You really
microscope was the word I was going for.
It's not like the people who are watching you aren't enjoying it, but in a sense, that's not what they're there for. They're there to mark you for your degree. You know, you literally get a grade at the end, and so you're going, did I do well? You know, obviously there's still those kind of did I do wells when you come to the working world of theatre, but it's different because the audience are in a sense just there to enjoy it. And then you get another hit of it at the stage door as well, which is nice.
But you know what I think is so exciting of the you know, for your career trajectory as well, actually, the musical theatre shows that you've done are ones that I think a lot of people will have their first introduction to MTV from. And actually,
Sound of Music film.
And how exciting. Like, I always think, I was 2 years old when I fell in love with theatre. I don't know what it was I went to go and see, but I know it was at the Manchester Opera House. And when we came out, I said, when I'm a grown-up, I want to work in a building like that. And actually, there will, you know, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be on the West End stage. Actually, you can work in our industry in other ways. And actually, it's tapping into that love, isn't it? And finding that passion.
Absolutely.
And it's lovely because you do speak with that passion about all those roles.
Thank you.
It's true, though, isn't it?
Oh, well, I do have.
Honestly, I'm a big believer. If you haven't got the passion, it's not going to stay.
Hey,
it won't continue.
That's
in the
what
career.
sustains you. I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't go up and down sometimes in terms of like, because you know, essentially it's a working life, and obviously, you know, you are going to have ups and downs with it all, and
life goes up and down.
Oh my goodness me! Well, like I remember when I was coming out of Sound of Music, like, and I got this audition through for We Will Rock You, and I went for it, and I just I was going through a bad patch at the time. I didn't even get through the first round for this show, and I was like, oh my god, like, because I've always really wanted to do that show. And anyway, I went off and did something else for a year, and I was feeling much better and a lot more enthused for this, that, and the other. And then I came back and auditioned and got it the year after, and that was just, you know, and it's as you say, it's the passion for it. You know, once you've got it, sometimes, you know, it can feel unstoppable, which is great. So,
and also it might not necessarily feel right for that show at that time.
Exactly.
And if it doesn't, that's fine. It's just not meant to be at that time, because there will be other opportunities to come back. Because you were in Rock You for 2 years, weren't you?
Yeah, 2 years again. 2 years seems to be a
nice
bit of a
time,
pattern, doesn't it? It's a style.
A nice time.
Yeah, I think like it's different for everyone. Some people can do, you know, if the show allows it, of course, can do 5+ years in a show. Some people can only hack one. You know, it's you know, I seem to I have come into this nice pattern of doing 2 years in shows that allow it, and you know, that's just worked for me over the years. Rock You was a really good one. I learned a huge amount from that show, and I'd say, do you know, it's funny, the two shows that I've learned the most on would be the shows where I was understudying and doing ensemble. I mentioned it before. People always, you notice the leads because they're the leads and it's principal and all that kind of thing. But actually, as an actor or a dancer or a singer, I learned the most from the ensemble shows. Like in Evita, I was doing ensemble without a cover. Nothing at all.
Oh, right.
And that was after Rolf, you know, and I remember at the time a lot of my mates and a few of the people were like, oh, you sure you want to do that after just playing a part kind of thing? And I was so like, well, yeah. I mean, because at the time I was still quite young and I wasn't particularly fussy about what I did. I just wanted to do something. And, you know, the singing on Evita is so hard. I mean, and we were doing, there's tenor 1 and tenor 2, which is like tenor 1 is the high part, tenor 2 is the second high part. But because of the way the cast kind of came together, they also did a sort of a male alto line, which was even higher.
Oh, really? Gosh.
And you know, like alto lines, which is the lower female part, often does a bit of like a male bass part where they stay on a few notes kind of thing, and it doesn't have too much tune up and down. It's more just across a few notes. That's speaking really generally. But if you're a guy singing that part, that means you're singing up there all the time as a tenor. So so that my voice just took, you know, changed so much in that time. It took on big leaps and bounds, and then from that, We Will Rock You happened, which is all high, screamy singing. So you can see how one job leads on to another, and that's when I had done the odd little talk for students and stuff like that over the years. And my big advice to people when they're starting out is not really to say no to any job and not to say no to any opportunity. And people say, well, of course, but I was amazed when I came out of college, the amount of people that were turning things down because, it's not good enough for me. And I was thinking,
who are you?
A little bit, like, you're 21, you haven't done anything. Who are you to turn
teeth.
stuff that you've got to cut your teeth, and you've got to cut your teeth at the bottom. And I'm a big believer in, like, going about things the long way and to go and do your training, go and do it the proper way. I've met people who don't train and just have the ability, but I think I've always thought, go and do it the long way around. Go and, put the time in. You're not going to be a star at 18, and be able to do the job well if you haven't cut your teeth and sustain it and all that. And I do, I see it. I see people come in, because the post X Factor generation has just changed this business so much, and people come in from their 15 minutes of fame, and they come in and they do it, and sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, and I'm a believer in the old school methods myself.
I think also it's worth applauding the fact that theatre and acting, although I'm not an actor, is a craft.
Yeah,
it's craftsmanship,
so yeah.
And I think what we've definitely covered in all the episodes, especially where we are now, is that your body is a machine that needs training, and it
takes time.
But also, not necessarily just knowing that where your muscles are and how that muscle is going to work for you to get to that vocal range or that vocal ability you're aiming for, but also knowing what it is. Yeah. What is that thing moving? What is that doing? And how can I make sure that it keeps moving? Or what? Yeah. Even physically, if you're a dancer.
Yeah. The awareness is... And
if you don't have that, you can run in. Like with the fabulous Charlotte Pated, you can run into a show, sing it for 6 months, live your best life, but your voice is going to change a lot in those 6 months. Yeah. And how can you make that voice be okay in 6 years? Yeah. In 12 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so you're right.
Therefore sustain your career.
Yeah.
If that's what you want. This is it. Some people want the longer career, some people don't. It's but I think just in terms of the quality of the output and what the audiences get and what the shows get and all that kind of thing, I think people who put the time in and are prepared to work and go about it and not take too many shortcuts and that kind of thing. I think that's really important, because I think it is, again, talking about that like post X Factor time, which we're in and have been for 15 years maybe now, since the first kind of pop idol, which has leaked into the theatre business, is that it kind of has this illusion that anyone can do it, and I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't know.
As in, I don't
the talent and the dedication,
exactly, and be prepared to kind of learn from. You can't just do it out the bat.
But then I think it's probably the same with most careers, actually. If you work hard,
definitely.
If you work hard, you will get there.
Definitely.
It's nice. You do need the talent as well, I would argue. But actually, if you don't work hard, you could be the most talented person ever, but you aren't going to stay in the business.
No,
but not everyone can be an electrician or a plumber or a baker or a florist or a brain surgeon or a lawyer. Like, I'm not saying that.
Or a plasterer. That's apparently very hard.
You all need that initial buzz to be a plumber, electrician, a plasterer, a lawyer, a baker, but you also have to go to school to know that that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and to know that this is not a fast track to fame. Like, Ricky Gervais used to talk a lot about this. Was that like what do people want to be? A lot of people just want to be famous. They're not worried about what they're being famous
how
for.
They get that,
It's just about being famous. And I don't. It's not that you see it a lot, but I just get the sense that sometimes that takes precedent over kind of the work sometimes. And it sometimes does get the theatre world does sometimes get touched by that, I think.
What is one word you'd use to describe your career to date?
Oh my goodness, you've got an easy question.
No, that's it.
All right, okay.
That's what I like about this is hopefully you'll be absolutely fabulous and continue on a magical journey, and then you'll come back in like 5 years, and then
we'll have another.
And we'll be like, we can say
what's happened.
What's the next word to describe the last 5 years?
So at least you're briefed for then.
One word. Can I say like a phrase?
Yes,
go
you
on.
Can.
Then.
So like, I'm a big fan of because I'm into motorbiking, motorcycling. Like, I've got a motorbike,
really?
And I used to
just to pause that. That's a very Fiyero thing, isn't it? Because
Ollie Saville by any
chance?
Yeah,
it's a motorbike.
We used to compare sort of bikes and chat a bit about it. Like, because we both got a bike kind of roughly at the same time, and obviously he did Fiyero just after me, so we kind of found a bit of an affinity there. But
very Rowell.
Not very Rao.
I think
No.
modern, like if Rao was today,
If he'd have a side.
But I like a sort of juxtaposition there. I like because there's
Yeah.
a bike bay just over the road from the stage door, and actually I can see it from my dressing room. So you like pull into the bike bay on my motorbike.
I think you drive into work.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I love
How else
it.
would he get there?
Tube like everyone else.
Yeah.
Just the way you said it.
the 364 bus.
Or TFL.
Yeah.
Just imagine, like, sorry, Jeremy rocking up on his motorcycle, just pulling off his helmet, and he's off to go and play Rao, and then he just jumps back on his bike. It's like very like Michelle Pfeiffer Cool Rider, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's just a bit of juxtaposition.
I
It's
really
just
like
kind
it.
of nice. But no, what I was going to say was that one of the things that I really used to enjoy watching was Ewan McGregor's and Charlie Borman's trip round the world.
Yeah.
And they did it on these big adventure bikes, and it took them like 3 months or something. They went all the way around, literally all the way through Europe, Russia, everything, and then got on a plane, did all the way to America, and ended up in New York. I love that series, and their kind of ups and downs along the way, obviously, and there's trouble. And were they going to quit at one point? Were they not? Falling out of people, but getting that success and blah 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 blah. And the journey's called A Long Way Round. And I feel like because of all the ups and downs over the last, I mean, let's put the training in it as well. Now, 14 years? It's kind of like The Long Way Round, but it's like...
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
You asked for a word, but can I have a phrase?
I like the phrase. I like the explanation behind it.
And I think it's a perfect place to finish.
Hey,
Thank
there
you
you go.
so much for coming
Thank
in.
you. It's been
Thank
great.
you.
Cheers.
Thank you.